Well, today we're starting a new series, and it's on the book of Ruth. Book of Ruth is just 4 chapters in the Old Testament. Every summer, I like to take a biblical hero, so a person out of the Bible, and just spend like 6 to 8 weeks learning about them. Although you can probably read book of Ruth under an hour, like it's a quick book. We're going to take 6 to 8 weeks to discover about this awesome woman of faith. So far, every summer we choose, for example, we've talked about Jacob and how he was a liar and conniver and God still used him. We talked about last year, I think, about Samson. That was a cool series. If you haven't heard my series on Samson, you got to go and check it out. Especially if you're young men looking to get married, go and check that out. Then, last fall and this spring, we finished the series on Joseph. That was an awesome 16-week series. I hope this one doesn't go like that. And as you can see, all of these series are male series. We're talking about these guys, and women probably feel like, what about us? Are you guys sexist in that church? No, we're not. Bible has women books too, and there's a book of Esther, there's a book of Ruth, and many women that God used in the Bible to bring him glory. There's a lot of godly women. So today we're going to start talking about Ruth. Some of you are like, Pastor, seriously, on Father's Day? Starting a series on a woman hero? Well, you'd be surprised how the Lord had this planned out. We're going to actually talk to the man today from the book of Ruth, a book from a woman. Now, book of Ruth has no miracles in it. Like a book of the Bible has no miracles in it. No visible miracles. However, it does have something invisible. It shows us a beautiful picture of God's providence working behind the scenes in our lives. It doesn't have visible miracles, but it has God's providence. My daughter's like, Dad, what is God's providence? What is the word providence? Well, the word providence has provide in it. Providence. So providence means God providing for, sustaining, and governing your life and the universe. Providence means God providing for, sustaining, and governing your life, my life, and the life of the universe. The life of the godly, listen to me. If you're writing this down, this is a good quote. The life of the godly is never a straight line to glory. Ever made a mess and called yourself a Christian? Life of a godly is never a straight line to glory, but God is faithful and will make sure that the godly will get to their destination in the right time. God is faithful. So now let's open this book and begin to read. Today we're probably going to read more Bible than you've read in a long time in church. All right, so let's open book of Ruth, chapter 1, and let's read. It starts with a man, actually. In the days when the judges ruled in Israel, a severe famine came upon the land. So a man from Bethlehem in Judah left his home and went to live in a country of Moab, taking his wife and his 2 sons with him. The man's name was Elimelech, and his wife was Naomi. And their 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem in the land of Judah. And when they reached Moab, they settled there. Then Elimelech died, and Naomi was left with her 2 sons. The 2 sons married Moabite women. One married a woman named Oprah. Orpha. If you change those two letters, R and P, will be Oprah. But one married named Oprah, and the other, Orpha, and the other named Ruth. But about 10 years later, both Mahlon and Kilion died. This left Naomi alone without her two sons or her husband. Then Naomi heard in Moab that the Lord had blessed the people of Judah by giving them good crops again. So Naomi and her daughters-in-law got together to leave Moab to return to her homeland. With her two daughters-in-law, she set out from the place where she had been living, and they took the road that would lead them back to Judah. But on the way, Naomi said to her two daughters-in-law, "Go back to your mother's home, and may the Lord reward you for your kindness to your husbands and to me. May the Lord bless you with the security of another marriage." Then she kissed them goodbye, and they all broke down and wept. He's a guy, that's why. She says, "Why are you laughing?" to him. So they all broke down and wept there. There was a weeping party. Verse 10. "No," they said, "we want to go with you to your people." But Naomi replied, "Why should you go on with me? Can I still give birth to other sons who could grow up to be your husbands? No, my daughters, return to your parents' homes. For I am too old to marry again. And even if it were possible, and I were to get married tonight and bear sons, then what? Would you wait for them to grow up and refuse to marry someone else? No, of course not, my daughters. Things are far more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord himself has raised his fist against me." Ever felt like that? When life was going hard, that the Lord has raised his fist against you? I definitely did. There's been moments in my life when I honestly wanted to use bad words to talk to God. Ever felt that way? That's how she felt. The Lord has raised his fist against me. And they wept together. And Orpha kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth clung tightly to Naomi. "Look," Naomi said to her, "your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. You should do the same." But Ruth replied, "Don't ask me to leave you and turn back. Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Wherever you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord punish me severely if I allow anything but death to separate us." They use that verse in the weddings, but actually it's a bitter widow woman said to a bitter mother-in-law in this story. Nevertheless, it's a beautiful verse. I will never leave you. Wherever you go, I'll go. Your God will be my God. And wherever you die, that's when I will die. When Naomi saw that Ruth was determined to go with her, she said nothing more. So the two of them continued on their journey. When they came to Bethlehem, the entire town was excited by their arrival. "Is it really Naomi?" the women asked. "Don't call me Naomi." Naomi means pleasant. "Is it really pleasant who came? Don't call me pleasant. Instead, call me Mara," which means bitter. Call me bitter. Ever felt bitter? "For the Almighty has made my life bitter for me." Sometimes the choices we make cause us to get to a bitter place, but nevertheless, we don't always like to take responsibility. And God understands that. We just couldn't handle the responsibility at this moment. And here's what you say. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me home empty. Why call me pleasant, Naomi, when the Lord has caused me to suffer, and the Almighty has sent such tragedy upon me? So Naomi returned from Moab, accompanied by her daughter-in-law Ruth, the young Moabite woman. They arrived in Bethlehem in late spring, at the beginning of the barley harvest, to this place. Now I want to turn and talk to man. I want to ask you this. Man, did you know that decisions that you make, that I make, affect our sons and daughters for many generations? Man, did you know that decisions that we make affect our sons, our daughters, our wives for many generations? Elimelech was the father in this story, right? He had a perfect Jewish family. He had a wife, Naomi, and he had 2 boys. I believe Elimelech was a great provider financially. He loved to provide for his family. He loved to protect his boys. And if you knew that culture, in Jewish culture, having 2 boys was an awesome thing because you have a great heritage to leave to. Boys were a big deal in that land. So I think Elimelech is a great provider. But then something happened to the land. What happens? The famine strikes the land of Bethlehem. And so, I don't think he thought it all through. He takes his family out of Bethlehem, where they live, and Bethlehem means house of bread, and he takes them to Moab. Moab is a godless, pagan nation. Moab is a godless and pagan nation. Let me tell you about Moab. Moab came to existence from great perversion. Abraham had a nephew named Lot. Do you remember that story? Lot goes away from the presence of God and he lives in Sodom and Gomorrah. Do you remember that story? Sodom and Gomorrah is the wickedest people, the wickedest place on earth. They're so corrupt. Read the story for yourself. It's in the book of Genesis. And so God sends his angels, says, go check that city to see for sure if they're that corrupt, because I'm going to destroy it. Not many cities God destroyed, but in history we know that Sodom and Gomorrah was destroyed by fire that rained from heaven. That's where Lot lived. That's where his wife lived. And that's where his daughters lived. And that corruption penetrated them as well. So when God comes into that city through his angels, they push Lot to leave the city. Lot doesn't want to leave the city. But finally, he gets him to leave the city. You know what happened to his wife on the way out of that city? She became a pillar of salt, if you read the Bible. I'm not going to go into details because I have questions for God about that one. Don't understand that, whatever. Move on. Then they started living in cave because they lost all of their wealth. Wealth, listen to me about career and wealth. You can lose it like this. Don't put too much stock in your money or your career or your wealth. Hold it, but lightly. Because wealth is like a bird. If you squeeze it too hard, if you're greedy, you'll kill it. And if you hold it too loose, it'll fly away. You just hold it lightly. Don't put it too close to your heart. Lot was like Elimelech. He wanted to take his family because there was more money there. There's better career there. But what he didn't do, he was a great provider, but he was not a great leader of the family. Man, listen to me. You could be a great provider, bad leader of your family. How so, Pastor? Well, he takes his family to live in Moab. Let me get back to tell you how Moab came to existence. So Lot and his 2 daughters are left. And they live in a cave. And the 2 daughters have a great idea. There's not a lot of men here to marry, so let's sleep with our dad and create incest, and we will have children. So the older daughter gets her father drunk, and she goes and has a baby with her dad. And then the younger one does it. Yuck, right? Is that in the Bible? Yeah, Bible is very honest, guys. Bible is not a book about perfect people, because there isn't any. They're all messed up. Like we are. Like we are. They're all messed up just like us. And so the firstborn she names him Moab. And from him come the people of Moab. That's where Elimelech took his family. Then the second daughter does the same, and she names him Ben-Ammon. And that's where Ammonites came from. And for thousands of years, people of Israel has been in war with Ammonites and Moabites. They have been constantly in war. When Israel was coming back from Egypt, do you remember God delivered people from Egypt? They went by Moab and Ammon, and because they were so strong in numbers, the Moabites decided, we can't defeat them militarily, but here's what we're going to do. We're going to send beautiful women and have them sleep with Jewish boys. And then the anger of God will come upon, and they will destroy themselves with the sins. I told you about sin. Every sin in itself has poison. Inside, it tastes like candy, tastes good, doesn't it? Sin tastes good, but inside it has poison in it. Every time, believer or non-believer. You don't have to believe in God to know if you start cheating on your spouse, you're going to destroy your family. You don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to. Drugs, right? They feel good for a moment, but what do they have inside of them? Poison. They always do. I just recreational, medicinal, whatever. Yeah, just know. Yeah, some of them are medicinal. I don't argue with that, but I'm not going to do drug talk today. So let's just move on. Every sin has poison in it. It just is. And so Moabites were smart. They realized that, okay, if we make them sin, God will come and destroy them, or they will destroy themselves. Sin causes nations to fall. Guys, it does. If you look at empires in history, there's always a pattern. Go search it on Google. Falls of empires. How they start, the morals that they have, and how they fall. Read about that. And so, he takes his family. No Jewish man would take his family to Moab. It just wouldn't be, even for money. They would trust God to provide for them in Bethlehem. Notice, not a lot of people left with Elimelech. He took his family. Why? I don't think he was like a cultural Jew. I don't think he really believed in God. You know, there's a lot of people who are like, do you believe in God? 80% of Americans, yes, we do. But really, do you? Do you trust him? Well, I don't agree with this about God. I don't agree with this. And so you create your own little God. You make him up, and then it's easy to worship him because it's you. You created God. That means you're higher than God. So you're God now. See how? That's called idolatry. You create a God that you want to serve. We don't create. In New Life Church, we don't create our own God. We take who he is, and we accept him everything. It's not a buffet. Take it and leave it. No, it's the whole thing. It's the whole thing. That's what we preach here. And so he takes this family there. Good provider, bad leader. Didn't see the whole thing through. Imagine, I told my kids when I was, I practiced my messages on my kids. And I said, imagine if I took you to a Muslim country that hate Christianity They have Sharia law. The women are covered with burqas. The only thing they could see is their eyes. And Abby was like, I'm like, woman is like a half of a man in value in those countries. According to Sharia law, a man could beat his woman if she's disobedient. Come on. This is honest. This is in the Quran. And, and so for 10 years, they have no family. You have no family. You're living in this culture. You grow up. And I said, Abby, you would probably, some Muslim boy would fall in love with you. And Alex, you would have crush. They're teenagers right now. They have crushes. Crushes. Oh, Jesus. I'm in that stage. And I said, I would be a bad father. I would be a bad father if I allowed, move my family. Even if it was a great career move, it would have been a bad spiritual move. You can't always just look at the career and financial. You have to look at more things. They moved to a country where his kids, Elimelech's kids, had no Christian friends. He moved his family to a country where his wife had no women Christian friends who she could pray with. You get where I'm going? That's important. For women to have godly Christian women around them to talk to. Sometimes your man he's stupid. He doesn't understand you women. All right? I'm so glad my wife has other Christian friends, because they talk like for 3 hours. We don't talk that long. When she says, I gotta talk to you, I'm like, act like you want to. Because inside I'm like, oh, how long is it gonna take? And I want bullet points. Husbands, right? You want bullet points. You don't want the whole story. And she starts with one story, goes into the second, third, fourth, comes back to the first story. And it's all so messed up. And I'm like, follow. And then I pick up my phone by addiction. And I just she's like, put it down. Okay. And then she keeps talking. And then I pick it up like, but Naomi had nobody like that to talk to a good woman to talk to. So she lived among a pagan nation who hated their God. And their nations were at war. Jewish nation was always at war with Moab nation. He removes his family for 10 years, at least 10 years from God's people. No church, no community, no relationships, no relatives, nothing. They're removed from it. Guys, think about it. Great provider, not a great leader. I pay child support. That's okay, you're a great provider, but are you a great leader? And God is calling men to be leaders of their home. The biggest cause of poverty in a world is absence of fathers in the home. The greatest cause of poverty in a world is absence of fathers in the home. But it's hard. I don't love her anymore. Love is a commitment, dude. You don't chemical love her anymore. Love is more than just, the feeling. I'm going to move on. Men, the decisions you make will impact the lives of your sons and daughters for generations to come. And God is a God of generations. He's not just a God that works with you and he's done. God is a God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and then Joseph. God is not just a God, okay, you're isolated island. You're not. You're connected in a bigger providence, in a bigger picture of God. You're connected. You are on a big tree of God's providence and his purpose in the world. Bible says so. And this story will prove it. Let me just go ahead to the end of the story of Ruth and tell you that Ruth later becomes the grandmother of King David. And Jesus came into the lineage of King David. So she becomes a grandmother of Jesus Christ. She didn't know it. She was way gone. She was done. I mean, in heaven she knew, but on earth she didn't know that her little story, you could trace the line. And God is working in His providence to do something great. So don't just feel like, why is these things happening to me? Is it only happening to me? No, God is at work. God is at work in your life. Man, what's more important to you? Money, career, or eternity? Now, verse 3 and 4 says this. Then Elimelech died, and Naomi was left with her 2 sons. The 2 sons married Moabite women. One married, and so we know their names. His sons follow in his father's footsteps. Point 2, his sons follow, they always do, in our footsteps. He made a wrong choice. He made a financial decision for financial gain. He took his family to a godless country. And now his sons are making bad decisions as well. They are marrying Moabite women. Why? Israel is about 30 to 50 miles away. Most people walked in those days, so it would be like 250 miles for us today. But for them, 30 to 50 miles, you can be there in 2 days. All right? 3 days max. Instead of going to Israel and finding wives there, because they've been living so long in Moab, now they identify with Moabites. They identify with their gods. They identify with their culture. And so it's easier to marry somebody close to you, a neighbor. Plus, Moabites were hot and godless. They were. Bible says so. The enemy chose them to tempt the sons of Israel. From Egypt, they were hot. Yeah, I admit it. So is hell. Don't go there. Stole that one from Mark Driscoll. So now his sons are making bad decisions to marry Moabite women. Now, Pastor, hold on. What's wrong with marrying interculturally? The answer is nothing. If you're a Christian and you want to marry somebody from another culture, thumbs up to you. Do it. A Christian plus a Christian, great. Marry somebody like that. Unchristian plus unchristian, great. Marry them. Christian plus unchristian, not good. Don't marry them. A white Christian plus a black Christian, great. A Christian plus unbeliever, not good. The Bible says in 2 Corinthians, I believe, let's put that on the screen, 6:14, it says, do not be yoked together with unbelievers. For what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with darkness? So here's the thing. Biblical language. Okay? You're not a bad person if you're not a Christian. That's not what I'm saying. But Bible calls people who are believers in Christ walking in the light now. And people far from God walking in darkness. That's what the Bible says. And so when darkness and light get together, they don't like each other. I've seen this. Guys, I've married many people, and I've seen this in my life. I see a Christian girl, loves Jesus, serves in the church, gives, worships Him, comes to worship nights. Just great person. And she meets somebody at work. Great guy too, but not a Christian. And finally, suddenly, he starts coming to church. And he becomes a Christian. And then they get married. And next day, next week, next month, suddenly he wants nothing to do with God. Starts hating this thing. Because a person came to God not directly, but through you. And nobody wants to come through a mediator. We just want to go directly to God. You were on the way. And so problems start. She or he wants to go to church on Sunday. She or he wants to go to a club on Saturday night. She doesn't want to, or he doesn't want to have a hangover on Sunday morning. So they make a decision and say, I'm not going to the club on Saturday. He or she doesn't mind a hangover on Sunday morning. That makes them skip church. Stomach flu, you know. People come up with all kinds of excuses. Hangover, man. Hangover lady, you know. And so they're pulling different directions. So the Bible says, listen, save yourself some. Life is already hard. Why do you want to create more problems for yourself? And by marrying a believer, marrying a non-believer will cause problem. Even a secular world, psychologists tell us, if you're a conservative Christian, don't marry a liberal. You have different values. One of you want to go to church and one of you wants to go protest. Which is church for people who don't go to church. A lot of times, not all the time. Some protests are good, but some of them just, let's go protest. One of you wants to watch Fox News and the other just cannot stand it. One of you listens to Anderson Cooper, and another one is listening to Rush Limbaugh. Or if you're younger, Ben Shapiro, And so you're pulling apart. You cannot drive in the same car anymore because he wants to listen to this, she wants to listen to that. You cannot watch TV together because now you have two TVs. She wants to watch that news station and you want to watch this news station. You know what I'm talking about. Come on. Wisdom. Wisdom says it's not a good idea. We always say when two people get together and when they marry, they are building a house together. In modern culture words, we're building an empire. Yeah, baby. We're building an empire, which is cool. And I believe that. It actually is. I think everybody's broke until they get married and then they start building, a house, a car, a picket fence, whatever, a boat. And so you start building a little empire. What yours empire is empire to you. So, but imagine if two people are building a home, but they have different codes. They're building according to different codes. For example, let me just give you an example. In Europe, electrical system in the home or business is 240 watt system. In United States, it's half that. It's 120 watt, right? So two people are building a same house because marriage is building the same house. And one of you looks at a code that says 240. So you're wiring your part of the house with 240 system. And one of you is wiring 120. And then once you get it all done, painted, looks beautiful, put the carpet in, and then you switch that big switch, on and off switch in the basement. By the panel, by electrical panel, right? You switch it, what happens? I don't really know what happens. Electricians, you got to help me. But it's probably going to start sparking and maybe even catch on fire. And everything you've built and everything you invested in is up in smoke. That's how it is building a family with two different faith, two different philosophies, two different theologies. One is building this, one is building that. It could work, don't get me wrong, but it's going to create a lot of friction, needless friction. She says, God has turned his fist against me. But actually, her and her husband moved to a place that caused a lot of problems in their life. They were trying to escape death by leaving Bethlehem, and death found them in Moab. Do you see where I'm going with this? A Christian marry a Christian. An unbeliever marry an unbeliever. Otherwise, you're causing a lot of problems for yourselves. Now, I always forget his name, Elimelech. He knew this. He read the Bible. In Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 3, let me just show you this, what it says. Deuteronomy 7, 3. You must not intermarry with them. Do not let your daughters and sons marry their sons and daughters. For they will lead your children away from me to worship other gods. Then the anger of the Lord will burn against you, and he will quickly destroy you. They knew this verse. But you know, who listens to the Bible? You know, kind of just like, okay, yeah. And so, disaster strikes. I got 5 minutes, guys. I got to finish this. Elimelech dies. His boys die. And they leave 3 bitter women. 3 hurt, bitter women. Now, Elimelech does not have a plan beyond. See, I don't think he planned to move to Moab for 10 years. I think, like all of us, you know, we're just going to move God just for a little bit. You know, some people do this. I hear people say this to me. Pastor, I'm just going to take a break from a church for a couple of months. And it's never a couple of months. It's usually years. I don't think he planned to leave the presence of God for 10 years. I think he thought, okay, 1 year we can live. Maybe he had a construction business and business was booming. You know, Moab, so he's like, we're just going to go there. We're going to live there. But you always stay longer there than you want to. And so disaster strikes. And he has no insurance policy, no money saved up, no family around, no community of faith. He left his wife to fend for her 2 boys, and then they die, and she is ended up with 2 daughters-in-law. Husbands, do you have a plan? That's on you. What would happen if you would die? Father, what would happen if you would die? Would your wife, would your family would be able to survive? Tim Keller talked about a man he knew, and he said when a man got diagnosed with terminal illness, he loved his wife so much, he says, I want to provide for her. So he went to a flower shop, and he scheduled purchase flowers for his wife's and his anniversary every year for as long as she lived. He wrote her a personal note and gave it to the flower shop so they would put it for every year she lived. He set up bills for auto pay. He gave her all the banking and passwords so she would know what to do. He gave her probably password to his cell phone, you know. He gave her all of that. He remodeled the home for her. Make sure she would be taken care of because he loved her. And every year on their anniversary, flowers would come in, and their children would be like, Mom, did you get a boyfriend? He's like, no, that's your dad. What? Fathers, what we do, the kind of example we set for our children matters. Imagine those boys watching that their father has been dead for 3 years, but the flowers keep on coming. And mom is taken care of. Do you have a plan? I want to encourage you today. I know it's uncomfortable to think about it, but husbands, you need to take lead on this. You're the leader, biblically speaking, of your home. And you got to talk to your wife and tell her, hey, if something were to happen to me, what would you do? And kind of have a plan. I know some of you are young, and I'm young too, but I got to sit down and talk. Elimelech didn't have a plan. He just, money. Let's make money. He was a great provider. Not a good leader. Spiritual leader. The book of Ruth. Are you enjoying it so far? The book of Ruth wants to teach us that God's purpose for our life connects us to something bigger. Yeah, there's no visible miracles in that book, but there's providence of God. A thin line, scarlet line going through the whole thing and leads to Jesus and now leads to us. Now, I want to finish on a good note, so I want to just thank you. If you're a good father today, if you are leading, if you're providing for your family, if you're leading your family to the presence of God. Because remember, whatever we do financially here will rot, will get old, will die, right? Your car, your boat, your house, everything. I mean, your body, everything you do here. But when you lead your family into the presence of God and they get to know Jesus, you will spend eternity with your family, not just here on earth, but in eternity. And so if you're doing that, maybe you don't have a great job, but you are, make sure your kids have good godly friends, that your wife has good godly girlfriends she can talk to, she can pray with, she can hang out with. I want to thank you for that. I'm honestly feeling like on behalf of Jesus Christ, on behalf of His Word, God is pleased with you, dads. Now, if you maybe not involved in the lives of your children because of divorce or separation, and you feel guilty, let me just tell you that this is not my purpose. Guilt never changes behavior. It doesn't. You know what does? Encouragement. And here's what God would say to you: hey, get up and do better. Like He said to the woman, get up and sin, go and sin no more. Get up and do better. You can do better. If you haven't been a great father, go and contact your kids. If you're a stepdad, and you know it's hard to be a stepdad, especially when we counsel step parents, sometimes the kids they want the food, they want the protection, they want the home, but they don't want you to even tell them anything. You are doing even greater work, and God is pleased with you. When Mary was pregnant with Jesus Christ, Joseph was going to leave her because he's not the father. He knows that. And then an angel of the Lord appears. He says, don't cast her out. Go and become that father. And he ended up being a father of a great man. The earthly father of Jesus was Joseph. He stuck around. And so I want us to give a hand to all the stepfathers, all the grandfathers, all the fathers who are doing a great job and who keep on doing a good job. God is pleased with you. He entrusted you with those children because He knew you would do a great job. So be encouraged today. We don't see a big picture right now. Sometimes our life is, we just see our own problems. But when we look at the story of Elimelech, his sons, his wife, Naomi, and then Ruth, his daughter-in-law, and how she became the grandmother of Jesus Christ, now we see the big picture of providence of God. Pastor, where is the providence in the Bible? Here's the verse. All things work together for good for those who love God and are called according to His purpose. So even the mistake of Elimelech, mistake of Naomi, worked for the good. Now it doesn't mean, well, now I can make mistakes. No, that's unwise if you say that. But when you do make mistakes, even when we make the wrong choice, God can still turn it around, and you will see it in this story. So don't miss the next 4 weeks or 5. Don't miss it. It's going to be great because God is at work in your life just like He was. And if only we could see from 20,000 feet or 10,000 feet what God is going to do through our life and through our children. He's good Father. That's who He is.
Thanks for tuning in to New Life Sermon Series Online. If you're blessed by these messages and are interested in helping spread the Word of God to others, make an investment today. You can give at newlifechurchsf.org. If you have a story or a testimony to share, let us know on our website as well. We hope you have a blessed day and enjoy today's message by Pastor Alex.